I've never been the type who enjoys crowds or rules. Give me an old house, a set of tools, and a quiet piece of land to work on, and I'm at peace. That's exactly what drew me to this place, a sloping lot outside of Cedar Hollow, tucked between the hills and the old forest line. The first thing that sold me wasn't the view or even the bones of the 19th century farmhouse. It was the fact that it wasn't part of any HOA. No committees, no letters, just my land, my name, and the county's seal on the deed. I spent 3 years restoring that house board by board, new beams, repointed brick, a wraparound porch built from reclaimed oak. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. So when an envelope with the Cedar Hollow Meadows HOA logo showed up one morning stamped like a threat, I almost laughed. Inside was a letter complaining about my unkempt yard and non-compliant landscaping. I tossed it straight into the fireplace. Maybe they'd mistaken my property line. Maybe they were testing me. Either way, I wasn't playing. A week later, I got a call. "This is Lydia Crane, president of the Cedar Hollow Meadows HOA," she said in that tone that made her name sound like a title. "We need to discuss your property's appearance. It brings down the neighborhood's visual standard," I told her calmly. "My land isn't under your jurisdiction." She tried the community spirit speech, something about collective aesthetics. I recorded the whole thing, hung up, and filed a report with the sheriff. Folks like Lydia don't stop because they're told to. They stop when someone tells them with paperwork. Still, I had a feeling this wasn't over. I installed cameras, infrared, high-res, the whole setup. And then one morning while I was off at a hardware supply meeting, my phone buzzed with a call from Marla. My neighbor, one of the few people I actually liked. Her voice was shaking. "Eli, you need to come home now. A tree came down on your house." I thought maybe she meant a branch, a roof dent, something fixable. But when I turned the last corner of that dirt road, my heart just stopped. 100-year-old oak, 6 stories tall, had split my house clean in half. The roof was crushed, windows shattered, half the second floor gone. My home looked like it had been hit by artillery. And standing right there on the ridge above it was a crew in orange vests, none wearing helmets, none using cables or braces, just staring down at the damage like they'd dropped their coffee instead of a tree. Marla ran up, tears in her eyes. "It was the HOA," she said. "I saw their truck. They were cutting trees along the slope, no permits, no safety lines, and when it started to fall, one guy yelled to pull it toward the road. But they didn't. It rolled straight down into your place." I didn't yell. I just started taking photos. The cameras I'd installed caught every second of it. The truck logo, the crew, the moment that trunk tore through the roof. I handed the footage straight to the deputy when he arrived. He took one look and said, "That's not an accident, Mr. Holt. That's negligence." By sundown, I'd already called my lawyer, a friend named Marcus Lee, a man who could quote building codes like gospel and had a personal grudge against lazy bureaucrats. "We'll hit them with everything," he said. "Civil damages, unlicensed contracting, reckless endangerment. You name it." The insurance guy who showed up shook his head before I even spoke. "This isn't repairable," he muttered. "You're looking at $500,000 in damage." Marla brought cornbread and something even better. A second camera angle from her porch cam. You could see the crew laughing before the tree dropped, and one of them actually saying, "We don't need to file this." Lydia said, "It's fine." That single sentence was gold. Over the next few weeks, Marcus and I built the case like an architect builds a foundation. Footage, insurance reports, public records, even HOA financial logs I dug up from the county site. Turned out the tree project wasn't approved by the board at all. Lydia had pulled money from a disaster cleanup fund meant for storm damage, not beautification. Fraud, plain and simple. Then the retaliation started. Flyers showed up around the neighborhood calling me non-compliant and hostile. My truck tires got slashed, camera caught the same guy from the tree crew doing it. Then someone slid a fake evacuation notice under my door, stamped with a forged county seal. They were trying to scare me off. Instead, I posted my own video on YouTube titled, "One Man versus the HOA Machine." I laid it all out, footage, documents, lies. No drama, just truth. Within a day, the video hit 12,000 views. People started sharing their own HOA horror stories. Suddenly, the light was on, and Lydia's little empire didn't like being seen. That's when an email landed in my inbox from a man named Derek, the HOA's former treasurer. He'd resigned months earlier. Attached were scanned memos showing Lydia knew she wasn't authorized to cut those trees. One even had her quote, "That guy's place ruins the view. We'll handle it quietly." That was the nail in the coffin. Marcus forwarded everything to the district attorney, and within a week, Lydia was facing not just a civil suit, but potential criminal charges for fund misappropriation. She tried to play the victim, of course, organized a community meeting to plead her case. I showed up folder in hand. When she started blaming me for dividing the neighborhood, I stood up and said, "You destroyed my home, Lydia. The difference is I can rebuild mine. Can you rebuild your credibility?" Then I handed her the printed invoice she'd signed for the unlicensed crew. The room went quiet. I swear even the air stopped moving. The trial came fast. The footage played on a courtroom screen, and when that tree came down in slow motion, everyone flinched. Lydia's lawyer tried to argue it was an act of goodwill, that the tree posed a risk. Marcus leaned over and whispered, "Wait for it." Then he played the undercover recording of Lydia bragging to a fake journalist that she'd sped things up because that guy's place was an eyesore. The judge just stared at her and said, "Well, you sped things up all right." In the end, the HOA was ordered to pay over $500,000 in damages, plus another $150,000 for emotional distress. Lydia was banned from serving on any board for 5 years and got a suspended sentence for falsifying financial records. The court also ordered a full audit of the HOA's finances for the past 3 years. Let's just say a few other skeletons fell out of that closet too. The rebuild took months, but I was there every day watching real professionals do the job right this time. Marla helped pick the layout, insisted the new porch should breathe with the hill. We turned some of the old beams into picture frames, reminders that broken things can still carry history. By summer, the house stood tall again, sunlight catching the fresh paint, wildflowers growing where chaos once was. The HOA had new leadership, now young people who actually cared about community instead of control. Lydia. She moved 2 counties away, probably still lecturing strangers about grass length. One evening, as the sun dropped behind the ridge, Marla and I sat on the porch, barefoot, wine in hand, watching the world turn gold. I told her, "You know it stopped being about the house a long time ago." She nodded. "It's about standing up when they expect you to roll over." She was right. If you've ever dealt with an HOA that crossed the line, you know how it feels when a rulebook turns into a weapon. But sometimes standing your ground is the only way to remind people where the line actually is. So tell me, what would you have done? Would you have fought like I did, or walked away and started over somewhere else? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious how you see it. Justice, stubbornness, or just survival?